joint stream or in live chat, but whatever. We're talking football. Zenny62 Media's NFL draft expert, Bill Carroll, dressed to the nines. Is You're looking natty, man.
I do what I can. I do what I can.
I want to ask
Big plays aplenty, right? All around the league, particularly on special teams.
before we get there though, I want to talk about Frank Wycheck because he died.
The late great Frank Wycheck, yes.
And
Suffered a fall in his home
yeah,
and did not regain consciousness. His family has decided that his brain will be donated for CTE research to determine if there was anything there. Yeah.
and they say he fell. How tragic. But folks, if you're wondering what his claim to fame is, if you remember the Music City Miracle, he was the tight end that threw the crossfield pass.
Yeah. He had been a high school quarterback in Long Island and hits Dyson across the field, and the rest, as they say, is history.
And for better measure, my longtime friend and Cal classmate Mike Silver wrote one of his best Sports Illustrated articles specifically on the Music City Miracle. So if that's available online, you should definitely check it out and read it.
Go to the archives section and you'll see it under si.com archives.
Now we're getting to plays. You were talking about big plays, Bill. So go ahead.
Yeah, we've got a big plays aplenty, particularly in special teams, right? We've seen big returns, we've seen blocked kicks, and people forget sometimes about that third phase, right? The Motor City Miracle is a special team play. Many people forget, not only is it an important third phase of the game, but it's one of the places where coaching most matters. The difference between 2 or 3 yards, 4 or 5, 6 yards, every time you punt, every time you kick off, once you multiply over the length of a season, is between losing another game or two. And when you also add to that those big plays, those fakes, those, like I said, big returns and blocks, getting one of those. I mean, look at the historical data on a team that has successfully blocked a punt, right? Those teams win at 78 point something percentile, right? It's a big definer of the outcomes of games. Look at what a punt or kickoff return for a touchdown does for a team's chances to win a football game. It's up there with interception returns for touchdowns, amongst the most definitive switching the game from going in one direction, going to the other. So, and there's special teams coaches, 2 or 3 of them now, of course, are now, like Harbaugh being the most famous example, who now is, of course, an NFL coach. Belichick, early in his career, was a special teams coordinator. The special teams coordinator of the Colts is a guy that I think might get some NFL head coaching interviews. Yep, I think you might get some interviews.
And what do you think, by the way, of Derek Carr now? Because Carr is playing, he's sacked once, but the offense is typically anemic. The only good news is that, well, look, the Carolina Panthers are just god awful, not well coached.
Yeah, well, it's a get right game, as they call it, and it's a good game. If you had to come back from a bunch of different injuries as a quarterback, this is the right game to do it in. It's almost like a 3/4 speed scrimmage to some extent. It gives you a chance to get back in the field, and maybe you missed a couple of practices, so get your timing back, things like that. They don't have a great pass rush, though, as you said, they got to him once, but they don't have a great pass rush. Their secondary isn't particularly special. There's no part of their defense that really scares you, so all you have to do is, as we use the old golf analogy, keep the ball in the fairway. And Derek Dallas Carr is more than capable of keeping the ball in the fairway. They should escape with about a 10-point victory, and that's all you need.
Now, shouldn't David Tepper, the owner of the Panthers, be insulted thinking that his team is scrimmage fodder?
Well, I mean, the Panthers have had opportunities to be a better football team than this, and they have sometimes squandered those opportunities. They made a couple of, I think, cardinal errors, and I understand wanting to, quote unquote, get your guy. But sometimes teams wildly overpay to move up. I've always been a move down rather than move up person in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Because, well, for 2 reasons. One is I always want more picks rather than fewer picks. That's the first thing. But if my team is very close, I'll excuse moving up to get a particular player if your team is very close. If you're 1 or 2 players away from being a Super Bowl contender. But I don't know if you've heard, Zenny, that's not who the Panthers are. They were not 1 or 2 players, or even 5 or 6 players from being a Super Bowl contender. So when your team is where their team is, you want a lot of draft picks. You should be trading down. Yeah. And now they don't have a first-round draft pick. So a lot of things have gone on in the way that team is constructed that I'm not a big fan of. And if I keep thinking if they traded down, they might have come away with, Will Anderson, or they might have come up with 1 or 2 really good players and still picked up a quarterback. We talked about some of these quarterbacks that have showed up and played well. Baker Mayfield was right there. All he did was give him another contract, roughly the one they gave him. He would have been a bridge to whoever they would have drafted because they still would have had a first-round pick. In fact, they would have had maybe multiple first-round picks if they traded down.
Hey, Bill, let me ask you, am I frozen on your end?
You are frozen on my end. I can hear you, but your face is just kind of like.
Yeah, I'm frozen too. It's really weird. Let me see something here. I don't know why that is. Let me refresh the screen for a second. Hold on.
Sure.
Oh, that just changes the. Well, we're just gonna have to play through it.
We'll fight through it. But Scott Fitterer and others have a long, hard road ahead of them, and they got rid of Frank Reich. They moved on from him. I don't think he was the problem, but you can go through, get rid of everybody if you want to. But the real issue is roster construction. Coaching really matters. I'm never going to denigrate the importance of coaching, but if your roster doesn't have enough of the right kinds of players, coaching can help you to hide certain things until you run into a team that finds those things you're trying to hide, and good teams will. So they are in a not a great situation. And like I said, having sacrificed the first-round pick in the upcoming draft, there's a lot of things they really need to work on. If I were them, I would still use this opportunity to still trade down, see if I can accrue something for next year. This team's not going to be a contender next year either. Try to load up for the draft after that, quite frankly. Yep. This is at least a 3-year rebuild. So get everything you can in that year 3, because that might put you over the top to being a contender. But I do like what they have in Bryce Young, but Bryce Paul Young is a guy that needs the proper situation around him. In Alabama, he was surrounded with NFL talent. Now he's at a team. There's NFL talent, but they don't have a talent disparity. Let me rephrase that. They don't have a positive talent disparity when they take the field. And Alabama,
coaching issue, because once again, in an era of the super athlete, they're calling plays that you can run in the 70s, and they don't. So the result basically is that the receivers don't get open because of the design of the play, the poor design of the play, and then they asked Bryce Young to go back 7 yards and then throw an additional 15 yards downfield, which is 21. And of course, because of the time, they don't work on the timing appropriately. Guess what? It's behind the receiver. And these errors happen again and again and again, and yet they expect success, which is the definition of what's insanity.
Yeah. Well, they have 2 issues there. The receiving core itself. Adam Thielen's had a very good year, but Adam Thielen should not be your number 1 receiver. Like that's not ideal. As you know, they dealt DJ Moore to Chicago.
Right.
And so they still have not adequately replaced DJ Moore, who's explosive, right? He can do things after the catch that a guy like Adam Thielen simply can't do. But Adam Thielen is a guy they should hold on to. That's one of the veterans they should actually hold on to. One of the few, frankly, veterans they should hold on to. There's a handful of veterans they should hold on to, but they need to basically flip over this roster. And
hey, Bill, here's the thing. Here's why I push back on that. I'm of the opinion that you can actually make a great wide receiver. You don't need to draft one, and that's an old school idea. And that's where timing, that's where play design, that's where pattern formations and footwork come into play. And there's so much and sloppy football around today that those fundamentals are all but forgotten. I can't say they're completely forgotten, but I think Tom Brady was absolutely right. We have a really a coaching ability problem in the NFL, and it shows. I can make a great receiver by design.
Well, I don't dispute that coaching can elevate a player. You can't take a below average player and make them great, right? Because that's a little too much to ask. But you can take someone who has a lot of potential and refine them and take them from good to great, or from average to good, or below average to average. But there's too much gap to make up if someone just doesn't have the ability. Some people just don't have the ability to be great. I mean, otherwise, everyone eventually will become great if they were well coached.
Well, it's what
There's
you ask them to do, Bill. I mean, if you ask them to do something that is outside their skill set, then sure. Take a look at Skeets Nehemiah. Bill Walsh did a great job of developing him into a good receiver. He was fast, of course, but Bill
I don't
put
know
him
about
in the
good,
proper
but
situations,
go ahead.
including a very unusual, unbalanced formation I have never seen before since. And that gave me an idea just now. But my point is, you can make that person great by appearance, by design.
I
It's like a
mean,
movie. It's like you're an actor in a movie, right? It's
I
like
can't think of a person who went from being below average to great. I can think of people who went from being good to great, or below average to average. But I can't think of a single example of someone who went from. I mean, let's stick with Josh Allen, right? Josh Allen's probably the best example of someone who made a great transition from being, a guy who was very talented but just wildly inconsistent to, at least, I would say, very good. Great might be, I don't know. We can debate whether or not he's great, but I agree he's very good. That's one of the great examples of it. And he worked super hard, right? He improved his mechanics, made them more compact, his decision making's improved. But still, now you see the year he's having, it's been even up and down a little bit for him as well, just because of how many things have to go right for him to play at a super high level, because he
what?
has to be deficits to make up.
But I
And
think
he had really good coaching.
but Bill, you hit
Brian Daboll and his private quarterbacks coaches worked really hard with him, and he worked, like I said, on his
you
own
hit
really hard.
precisely on what I'm talking about. Your idea is appropriate to a receiver going out off the line and running a particular pattern a certain way. My point is, I can put that receiver in a different place, as at halfback, for example, and ask that receiver to run a flat pattern and catch it. And I can help that person build their confidence, but also if I know they run a 4-1-40, schematically, all right, put them in a place where I'm taking advantage of their speed. My point is, I can make anyone a great receiver. It depends on your now. You want to get in the definition of great receiver? That's a different point. But I can make that person great. I can make them great.
I think you mean effective rather than great, because a
And
great
to me,
receiver
it's the
doesn't.
same thing. Same thing to me. That's
Oh,
precisely the
okay.
same thing.
Because a great receiver is great no matter what. You know what I mean? Like Jerry Rice would have been great no matter what. Like certain guys are just great. Randy Moss could have been great in any situation,
Right.
any era, any whatever.
But see, that's
I
what I'm
think
getting.
what you're
But Bill, you
talking
hit
about
on
is
it.
take.
Bill, you hit on it. That's what makes a great. That's what makes great coaches the ability. And I'm not saying I'm a great coach because I haven't had the opportunity to prove it. But my point is, theoretically, right? You've got to understand how to get the best out of your player, regardless of their maladies. And I'm saying that the Panthers don't do that, among other.
Well, the Panthers have a lot of problems, right? I would agree that's one of them. The, the, but they still could use, because you said a guy who runs whatever. That's another thing, is they have a real speed issue at receiver. They don't
Yeah,
have guys
right, right.
away from people. They have a lot of sort of catch the ball, get 4 yards, and fall down kind of guys. So big plays are very hard to come by for them, for all the reasons we just noted. The most reliable person in their whole offense has been Chuba Hubbard, who, of course, was a sprinter, right? Was a Canadian high school 100 meters champion in, I think, Mississauga, Ontario. Don't quote me on the town. But he was a terrific speedster up there in Canada, came down to Oklahoma State, played for Coach Gundy, and drafted in the third round. One of my favorite running backs in the entire draft class. And the only question people really had about was catching the ball. You can throw the ball a lot to him at Oklahoma State, but he has good hands. And I thought he's demonstrated that in the opportunities he's had to catch the ball. They should use him even more, quite frankly. This is a team that not that long ago had both DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey. And of course, both those guys are gone. And while everything you're saying, they could use the talent they have better, they have a talent deficit. They every team they face has better players at more than half of the positions than they do.
And and,
That's the yeah.
and a question one, and reason why I continue to press that is, and I think the fundamental difference between our philosophies is, my thought is, hey, look, I understand I may not have the talent to do X, but I need to win right now, and therefore I have to win with what I've got, right? So how do I create speed? How do I create the certainty of the open receiver? How do I solve the problem right now rather than saying, well, in the draft, I'll do X? I've got an owner that's impatient. What do I do? Right? And that's what I'm saying. And so you've got to figure out the answer right now.
Yeah. So
You're
you can
not-
create
Wait,
space with like man beaters or zone beaters, what kind of coverage you're facing. The problem is they also have a really bad offensive line situation and a small
that's what
quarterback.
I'm glad you said. That's what I'm getting at, though. Remember how the Packers beat the Lions with short passing, and my point is, to me, it's a math equation. And a lot of coaches are not approaching this as a math equation. It's just, well, it's almost the whole angels and devils thing that I couldn't stand about football, that was maybe disinterested in it when I was little. Uh, it can be a scientific game. And too often, from the way I look at how they're preparing game plans, it's not. It's quite literally, which angel and devil is going to show up today on their shoulders, and it's a little annoying to watch play out. I have to say, it really is a lot annoying. You know.
Well, I mean, there's a certain amount of all the things we're saying being true. But I mean, you mentioned Ronaldo Skeets Nehemiah.
Yeah.
He was in a great situation and he became an adequate football player, but he wasn't, despite his physical talent, just probably he'd been away from football too long, quite frankly. Stopped playing competitively when he was about 15, and then I became, of course, one of the great great hurdlers of all time. And by the time he got back, it was sort of too late for him to become much more than sort of a gadget player. But he made a few big plays in his times with the 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't a guy that really terrified other teams, just because he wasn't consistent enough. He didn't catch the ball with his hands consistently enough, and he definitely didn't like getting hit. So he was a guy that would kind of crumple even before you touched him.
Yeah, because Bill's trying to make him a standard receiver rather than saying, "Hey, look, like I would have done." I would have said, "Look, I would put this guy in 5 different positions during a game. I would have put him at tight end. I would have even put him at quarterback and then had him go in motion. I would have had so much fun with
Yeah.
his
The only
talent.
problem with
You know,
putting a guy who's 187 pounds at tight end is as soon as the Dan Hamptons or whoever it is will just grab him and just hold him there.
no, that's not true. That's not true. If I put him in Yeast far right, uh, well, forget the language, okay? If I put him in a formation where I have him as double tight end, but I have him
Sure.
inside and off the line and the outside tight end up, all I
Right.
have to do is have the outside tight end come inside and chuck real quick, and then have him go out into the flat, play action to the opposite side, a quick pass to him. He's got the clear field, and he just runs. That's what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Okay. I mean, it is doable. And again, it
I'm
goes
not
back.
saying it's not doable. I'm saying that you can certainly work that in, but the first
That'll be
time,
my primary.
right? But the first time somebody says, "Okay, cool, we see what you're doing. We're gonna send somebody straight at that kid off, just off the edge of the shoulder of that other tight end and blast him on every play, whether he gets the ball or not," knowing that he doesn't like getting touched, let alone hit. After a while, he becomes, a little more tentative, and you don't get as many plays out.
But that's the thing, though. If I'm using multiple offense and I'm shifting, you don't know when I'm going to present that. And there are 5 different ways I can line him up and escape that ideology. I'm offense. I can win this battle. It's easy. It's winnable. So again, it's a math problem, and offense should always win it. And the state of play in the NFL today is that offense doesn't win it as much as it should, with these superhuman defensive people. But you can't attack them with a 70s style of offense, and that's exactly what's going on.
Well, there are certainly times when scheme can certainly create opportunities, but there's also times when a player plays above what the scheme dictates, right? Players do things that you don't think they can do.
Right.
We always think about the Troy Polamalu plays where he's not even supposed to be there, right?
Right.
It's not even. In fact, he literally isn't supposed to be there sometimes. And Ryan Clark will tell you some fascinating stories of times he's had to change his responsibility on the fly. It's like, I'm supposed to be in the box, but oh, wait, there comes Troy. Now I have to bail out 17 yards deep at the snap, so that now I can be the deep middle. So I get everything you're saying, but when you get on the field and you play the game, certain things happen that fall outside of what the scheme was originally supposed to create. And you need players that are able to react to that in real time beyond what the X's and O's dictate. Because even beyond what you schemed up or what you imagined, there are players who, like I said, a guy beats 3 blockers, right? We've seen it happen today where a guy's beat 3 blockers. Like there's things that shouldn't happen that happen on a football field.
Oh, by the
So
way,
yeah,
Derek Carr is 12 of 18 for 37 yards, and we should wrap up, by the way. But
yeah.
I'm going to continue this one because this is fun. You gave me a lot to think about. Also, I like this YouTube format, except that I look like Stoneface, don't I? I'm not moving. It's just like the thing is. I know you're getting.
I thought maybe you just decided to post a thumbnail instead.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, look at this. I can tell my mom because you're not going to be on camera, Mom. But look, I'm frozen. See. Mom says hi, by the way. So
well, hello, Mom. Yes, and hopefully you can get your son out of the carbonite.
Folks, for those of you who are not familiar with Star Wars, carbonite is the material that Harrison Ford was frozen in the Empire Strikes Back. Yes, I remember my Star Wars lore. Oh, I miss my friend Lars so much. Oh well. Anyway, Bill Carroll, we'll be back, right?
We will be back later today, I believe.
Yes. Bill's the master, folks. He dresses like it. Mom says, looking good.
Thank you, Mom. Always appreciate it. I do it for you, Mom. I do it.
You got it. So he's got his tie on.
Oh no, he looks good.
All right, Bill. I guess I pressed this to get out. I don't know how I do it. All right. Okay, folks. We will see. Oh, X marks the spot. I figured it out.
There you go. Right there.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. We'll talk soon. All right. See ya.
We will talk later. Yes.
Yeah.